right. Well, welcome to He Say, She Say Family Coach Live. And Law for Love is a special place in the legal community where we are empowering our families. How? Wisdom, justice, and truth. And so, with those three things, we are helping families to stay out of the legal system. Why does that matter? Why is that so important? Well, that's what Law for Love is about. That's what the reason for our style to family disputes. And you will hear a lot about that from me throughout He Say, She Say, because I have horror stories for y'all. So let me just introduce myself really quick. My name is Char, and I am an attorney mediator. I've been practicing law in the states of Georgia and Florida for the past 13 years. And when I tell you that I have been involved in thousands of family disputes, like I have lost count how many of these fights I've been involved in, just helping people to navigate life. Like, you come into a happily ever after situation. At least that's what the Disney movie told you, or the romance movie told you it was supposed to be happily ever after. Only to realize that you're from this worldview and this person is from this worldview, and you've had all of these different experiences, and then you try to bring that together into a happily ever after, and it becomes a clash of the titans. And so how we got to Law for Love, I was about 10 years into my family law practice when I began to realize that something is really, really wrong with the legal system. I mean, really wrong. And one of the issues is like a lot of people feel like they have to go to the court, that you have to run to court. And guess what? I'm here as an example, as a witness to let you know that you do not have to go to court to be heard. You do not have to go to court to have a legally binding outcome. You do not have to run to court to resolve your issues. And I began to notice that certain groups of people were always in court, and other groups of people, you don't really see them in court. And let me tell you a very interesting story. So one year, I took a case from Southeast Asian client, and he brought to me a document that was drafted by his temple. And I had never heard of this particular religion. It was very new to me. I only know the documents that lawyers draft in divorce cases. And as I'm reading this document that was prepared by, His Holiness Highness, His Highness Holiness, let's call him that. I don't remember the official title, but whoever the religious leader is or was, he drafted up this document, which was a settlement agreement between my client and his wife for the terms of their divorce. And I was like reading it, and I'm like, this is all he needs. This is all he needs. The only thing that was left for me to do was to kind of put it in the lawyer format and push it through to the judge, and the judge just sign off on it. But all of the negotiation, all of the talking, all of the decisions and agreements that were made, they were made behind the scenes with the help of His Holiness Highness. And that's when like the light bulb came on for me. I was like, okay, this is interesting, because they didn't teach us that in law school, how to take a document that was created outside of the court and make it work for a family. And so I kind of went on that journey to kind of find out more about helping people outside of the court. Why? So many people want to go into court and they want to air out all of the dirty laundry, and you don't necessarily think about the fact that court is a public place. Anybody from the street can come into your courtroom and sit down and take a seat and listen to you and this other person destroy each other on the stand. That's embarrassing. And quite frankly, there's no dignity in that. There's no dignity in airing out your all of your dirty laundry in a public forum in front of a judge who is really only meeting you for the first time in most cases. And this is the person that you want to help you, like, make this right. That just didn't make any sense. And the more that I was in litigation, the less that made sense. And I found my way into the world of private mediation. And let me tell you something. Here at Law for Love, we work with both sides. We work with husbands and wives in the same household, oftentimes having to figure out and having to navigate difficult situations. And that's what we're here for at He Say, She Say Live. And so I want to bring up one of the biggest things that we see, which is why couples are in conflict, why he's not hearing you, she's not listening to you. And that issue is authority. And authority is something that a lot of modern women do not want to hear about, this word called submission. And I know I'll get a lot of flack from women who feel like, I'm my own person, I make my own money, and I'm not trying to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen like women back in the day used to be. And I can certainly understand that sentiment because for many, many years, I had the exact same attitude towards marriage, and the power struggles between myself and my husband continued day in and day out, year after year after year, until I tapped into my role as one to submit to the final authority, the God-given authority that my husband has. And so I know that it rubs women the wrong way. Let me give you an example of my own personal experience with the word submission. So I was helping a client who had been married to her husband for more than 60 years. Like, these people were married more than 60 years. They were well into their 80s, almost into their 90s. It was just like, how does that work? My marriage was extremely difficult at the time, and 60 years just wasn't making any sense. Like, I just wasn't seeing myself crossing that benchmark in my own relationship, because it was just like I was just ready to be done. In fact, I was the runaway bride for the first 18 years of my marriage. I was every Friday night. I was just fantasizing about running, leaving my marriage, and so talking to this lady, and she asked me. She said, "Char, are you married?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "How long have you been married?" And at that time, I forget. Maybe it was, I don't know, uh, 8, 10 years, something of that nature. And she said, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Sure. What is it?" "Are you submissive to your husband?" Uh, Sometimes. Like, what do you mean? Why are you asking me that? Why are you trying to make enemies with me right now? Like, I'm here to help you and you're picking a fight with me. Like, what is up with that? And so she did say that she was going to come by my office and spank me for being so out of order, for not embracing submission. And it was like the way she asked me, she sounds so nasty. And I was like, yeah, no, no. So I worked in an office full of women at the time. And I went to the break room and I shared this client interaction. There were like 3 other women in the break room at the time. And I'm like, I got to tell y'all about this conversation with my client today. So when I hit the question, "Are you submissive to your husband?" It was like nails on the chalkboard. It was like everyone cringed. And then one of the attorneys was like, "No." Like, who asked you that? Like, that is so disrespectful. It was a big deal. That was when I began to pay attention. That was when I started asking myself, like, why is submission a bad word? Why is it like you curse me out if you ask me if I submit to my husband? Why is this such a bad thing? And then the more you look at it and the more you hear men, they don't always say it because it's not culturally cool right now to be like, I want my wife to submit to me, because it just carries a connotation of I want her to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. But That is not what men are saying. Men are not saying that they want to rule over their wives. Men are not saying they want to lord over their wives. Men are saying this, and I had one client say it this way. I love the way he put it. He said, if I, as your husband, and you as my wife, we're getting into a physical argument and it get heated, like the way when men argue, when it get heated to the point when men get ready to fight. That's how he was describing it. He was like, when the conversation gets heated to the point where you ready to throw hands, you have to ask yourself the question, who is going to win the throwing of the hands? Not saying that he's not a violent person at all. He's never abused his wife or anything like that. But his rationale for the who gets the last word was based on who's physically stronger. Like who was the one who would win in like a wrestling match. And I never heard it put that way, but I was like, okay, that kind of makes some sense, from the animal kingdom perspective kind of thing. But he's one of the few men in recent times who actually said to me, my wife doesn't submit to me. And so when men are asking for submission, when men want their wives to submit, what are they really saying? Are they saying, you don't have an opinion? Are they saying that you're supposed to agree with everything that they say? No, absolutely not. In fact, one of the things that I challenge men with as well is that you want a woman that's educated, because a lot of men want a wife with some brains. So you want her to be educated, you want her to be articulate, you want her to be capable, you want her to be able to help with building your personal kingdom and your empire at home. But she has a mind of her own. She doesn't stop having an opinion because of her submission to you or you having the final authority in your marriage. She doesn't just nod her head dumbly at everything that you have to say. In fact, men, your responsibility for your authority and you having that last say, you having the last word, means that whatever you decide, whatever you choose, the consequence lands on your wide behind shoulders, not on your wife. And this is one of the things that we share with women. Like, look, go ahead and let him have that. Because sometimes, brothers, you're not making the best decision. and maybe you can't hear your wife because of the way she talks to you. Maybe, she's kind of greasy with her words. Maybe your history with one another, y'all have just kind of lost that respect for each other has broken down to the point where neither one of you want to hear. Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about it. So, what do you think about submission? Please bear with me. This is my first time doing a live of this nature. I can't even see, like, I can't even see. So, bear with me. Let me see what I can see and find out what's going on in here in this StreamYard stuff. Because I do have a link to invite anybody who wants to kind of talk about relationship stuff, you're struggling with some things. Um, and I think it's even better if you actually have your wife or your husband present to hop on, so that I can hear both sides, because that's what the magic of mediation is that I'm hearing both sides, and then when hearing both sides, I'm able to help you both see where you have some common ground. So if you could just bear with me one moment, let me figure out how to drop this link. All right. Thank you for your patience. So I have dropped the link, and so now I think I can see what's going on. So let me go ahead and give y'all some shout outs. Uh shout out to Brother Fast Nickel, Big Red, shout out. Um Nayozeki, welcome to the live stream. Shout out to Karen, welcome to the live stream. Um, Shout out to you, Brother Walter. Thank ya now. Welcome. Michael Raya, welcome to the live stream. Let's be real. You are welcome. Welcome, Sister LaShonda. Uh, let's see who else is up in here. Welcome, Brandon. And I hope that I didn't miss anyone, but I appreciate y'all joining me. I am the one who works with my ears, and so I'm trying to figure out how to keep up with all of this stuff going on. But as Karis was sharing earlier this morning, this is not my comfort zone being live, but I'm happy to be here having this conversation about submission. So here was a little conversation that I had recently about, this wife who feels like her spiritual insight and her spiritual sensitivity is like superior to her husband's authority as the priest of her house. And I'm like, no. No, what do you do when you have a relationship with the Most High? You have your own prayer life, you have your own communication with the Holy Spirit, and maybe your husband, I don't know, maybe he's not there, or maybe his relationship is different in a way that you don't completely respect or understand. Do you just bulldoze over him and say, well, God told me to do this, so I'm gonna do it? Wrong answer. You don't just bulldoze over your husband. If you're hearing an instruction, if you're hearing an insight from God and God is telling you a certain thing, you bring it to your husband and he's like, yeah, I don't know about that, let me think about it. Your role as a wife is to yield. Let bro do what bro's gonna do. Submission submission doesn't mean that you just stop having your own thoughts or your own insights. Submission doesn't mean that you can't think for yourself, that you can't advocate for yourself, but it does mean that if he is not yielding, or if he is not hearing counsel, or if he is too proud or too arrogant to receive what you're saying or to see where you're coming from, and he makes a call that hurts your family, that's on him. Why is it so important? For you ladies who are, deep in your spirituality, I will tell you this, that honoring authority is one of the number one ways to protect yourself from slipping into deception. And for women, that deception that is so easy for us to fall into is a gateway. Like, rebellion against your male authority is like a gateway into witchcraft. It really is. It's like the fastest way to find yourself slipping into deception and witchcraft. And you get to the point where now you want to start manipulating your husband. You want to start, threatening him that if he don't do what you say that God told you to do, then things are going to go bad for him. Like, no, ma'am, now you're moving in witchcraft. Now you're operating like you're operating out of the dark side. Because when you are in authority, or when you are listening to the leading of the Spirit of truth, who is who God is, right? The Creator is the Spirit of truth. He is love. He is never going to guide you on a path of rebellion. Rebellion is contrary to his nature. So when you seek to undermine your husband's authority, when you seek to do what you want to do behind his back, because you already know if you came through him, he would shut it down. Like, if you're moving like that, sis, no, that is the gateway to witchcraft. And a lot of women are out here they're like, just bucking the male authority in their life, not realizing that they're operating as blind witches. They don't even realize that they're operating in witchcraft. And for you men, if you are dealing with a woman who is very spiritual, you're dealing with a woman who's dabbling in witchcraft, maybe your wife, or she might be a blind witch. What are you doing in your spiritual life? How are you girding yourself up in your spiritual authority? How are you warring to cover and protect her spiritually from the deception that has crept in and that has caused her to believe that she somehow has a greater covering or authority than you do? Covering. That's what the male represents, right? For me, I like to look at the way that we're built. Typically speaking, men have broader shoulders and women are broader in the waist. What is your physiology telling you about your created order? The law of creation is built into creation, meaning that wide shoulder, it represents covering, your authority to cover your wife and for your wife to cover the kids under your covering. And her broadness in the area, the region of her fertility shows her authority in the area of fertility. She is the one to bring forth. Her body is made for uh, the receiving of seed, the nurturing of seed, and the birthing and nurturing of seed. Women's physiology is built for that. So the laws that govern our relationships with one another, it's kind of self-evident in the way that we're made up. So do we have any couples or anyone who has a question about maybe a conversation that's going left in your relationship? I also want to put up a banner where you can also text questions to us. Oh, this didn't go out. Sorry. There it is. Man, let me tell you. I am going to do better, y'all. Y'all just work with me. We have a question here. How do you deal with the subject of submission when one or both are worldly? Oh, we deal with that all the time. So when you're talking about submission, even to worldly people are still very open to having spiritual conversations. Um, in our practice, we counsel on spiritual matters to everybody, and we work with everyone. We work with atheists, agnostics, people who are very religious, people who only claim to be spiritual with no religion, like the whole spectrum. But when you're talking about spiritual things are legal things. Like, so talking to a person who's not like, they're not responding to, verses of scripture or things like that, I speak to the natural wiring of a man, right? Most men are wired to respond to the vulnerability of a woman, to want to protect her. That's a natural instinct that doesn't require a spiritual conversation. Most women want to feel secure. Most women fear abandonment, not being covered. Like, when you really think about what abandonment is, it is the absence of covering. And so when we talk about submission, we talk about it from the standpoint of your natural inclinations, your natural tendencies, the things that people tend to fear, or the things that people tend to be motivated by, because those things are naturally occurring. And that's what spirit is. We don't have to have a religious conversation. So you could be worldly, but you as a man, you have a natural instinct that you want to be a provider for your wife in some type of way. Maybe she makes more money than you, but you still feel responsible for her physical safety. You still feel responsible. Like, if y'all were out together going out to eat, and someone disrespects her personal space, bumps into her, or some man got up in your wife's space, like, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to get ready to fight. You're ready to take him down. Why? Because that natural instinct in you to protect People who are not even like very worldly people are having all of these conversations about men, women in movies being portrayed as being able to fight men and beat men up. Like that's a conversation that I've been hearing a lot of from men. Like, what is up with all of these movies where, these women like drop kicking men? Like, that's not even the real world. Like, they gassing y'all head up to think that y'all could just fight men like y'all men. Like, this isn't a popular conversation to have in today's culture. But the problem is this: physiologically speaking, we are not built the same. Men are typically stronger. I'm not saying that there's not women that's kind of like tough that could like handle themselves. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that from, a created order, their frame is built a little different and they have more strength physically than females do. And for that reason, men tend to want to physically protect their women. And so you just look at that protective mechanism as how covering works and why women want to feel secure with feeling covered and protected by their man. So that's how I would answer that question. Oh, thank you for the encouragement, y'all. I appreciate it. Um, I don't know if I yeah, Judah is talking too loud. Hold on. Oh, I muted the whole time, just talking. Thank you, brother Red. Yeah, see, look, now he covered the sister. that he covered the sister. He helped the sister out. He said, I got to call my sister. My sister is muted. She's steady talking. We can't hear her. This is not it. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. I was, yeah, y'all have to look, y'all was dropping comments. I'm like, Sister Shaw do not see me telling her we can't hear her. So I asked a woman that question. The issue that I find is a man wants to use that verse for empowerment, but men don't want to accept their role that comes with that. So I was reading that comment from Fast Nickel about men wanting to say, you need to submit. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husband. Like, nobody wants to hear that if you are not taking the lead, if you are not going ahead and making the decisions and putting forth the effort that's necessary to lead your wife in the direction that is best for your family. I was working with one husband, and keep in mind now, when I'm having these insights that I'm sharing with you, oftentimes they're coming as I'm in the middle of a divorce. Two people who are actually separating their household, separating their things, and figuring out how to share their kids. And I'm talking to one husband in this situation, and he was saying to me, "Yeah, my wife doesn't submit." But as I began to, just kind of challenge him into thinking and reflecting on ways that he has shown up in his relationship in child form, which we all do. We all show up with our childish tantrums, our little childish ways of getting what we want. The little kid shows up in every relationship. If you're not aware of it, you're going to act out as a little kid. And it was when we talked about the little kid showing up in his relationship, that is when it hit him. He was like, I'm sitting up here wanting her to submit to me, but I was being a little kid and hiding from adulting and expecting her to go out and be the adult. That's why she wasn't trying to submit to you, bruh. You can't say you want the final say. You can't say you want your authority and then you get missing when it's time to go out to battle. That's not how that works. And then you have to be consistent. Like, women, we respond to consistency. When we can count on you to do what's in you to do and what's your authority to do, then we are more inclined and more desirous to submit to that, because we can trust that, okay, he got it. But you want to lead today because it's convenient, but then you want to like not do it and just sit back and let her do it. Can't do that. You can't have it both ways, right? And that's just how life is. You can't have it both ways. You want to feel respected, you want to be honored for as being the man, you want to have the final say, and you want her to respect your authority, then walk in your authority consistently, walk in your authority at all times. Refuse to allow your woman to have to lead because you missing an action. So that was a good point that you brought up, Fast Nickel. All right, what else I miss? Y'all yelling at me about my sound. Y'all, we gonna work this out. We're gonna figure this out. There was another comment that I saw, and I'm probably gonna have to have on these Monday nights, I'm probably gonna have to have someone who can read questions and comments to me, because I need to be able to hear. Seeing is gonna slow me down. How does a married couple overcome different communication styles? Men being logical while women are emotional. Neo Zeki, thank you for this question. This question really goes to the heart of something that really frustrates me as a woman who is trained in logic. Because I don't think that women are naturally emotional. I think we were programmed to believe that. I don't think that that's true, that we are by default emotional and by default men are logical, because I think that assumption negates men's emotional, men being emotional. Men are emotional as well. So that would be my first thing is I challenge women that your feelings do not dictate facts. Your feelings just do not dictate facts. I was recently speaking to a client, and this client said something like incredibly, for example, she said, I don't think anything good can ever happen to me. Something like that. And I looked at her and I was like, why would you say that? And she said, well, that's the way I feel. Okay. But your feelings do not dictate reality. Your feelings don't equal truth. That's not factual. That's just the way you feel. And if you continue to feel a certain way and believe a certain way and confess a certain thing, then you're never going to see anything good coming to you. So I'm just going to reject what you're saying right now, because that's not true. It's just your feelings, and your feelings are not true. And so, men, I'm not going to sit here and suggest to you that you become more emotional to be understood by your wife. I want to challenge women to differentiate between what we're feeling and what the actual facts are. What are the facts? I had to unlearn a lot of that emotional programming that came from, look at where it came from, y'all. It came from daytime TV, Jerry Springer show, Maury Povich. Like, what did they do? They had all these people who had nothing else to do all day come onto the show with some kind of ratchet situation where I slept with your brother, or I had a baby with your cousin, or whatever. And then they be sitting on the stage, and then the truth come out, and the next thing you know, they was fighting. They were fighting on the stage. So what these things like shows like that, or the romance novels, or the these drama flicks, these chick flicks, what they're doing, they're programming women to believe that we're emotional and that we only think emotionally. But that is not a permanent state of being. That's a conditioning, that's a programming. I personally had to unlearn that programming. I had to begin to differentiate between my feelings and the facts. And when you are in a marriage with a wife who is responding out of her emotions and her emotions dictate what the facts are, then, it is her relationship often with other women who are assumed to be able to understand without her having to like completely articulate what she's feeling, to begin to challenge whether or not what she's feeling is actually true. And with the work of a life coach or someone who can begin to kind of like bounce back to her, like, no, I don't know about that. Yeah, is that just your feeling, or is that the facts? What actually happened? Women are able to be as logical as men are. I'm living proof of that. Even in high school, I had a friend who I used to rant about how awful and evil my parents were, and I would give all of these emotional rationalization of emotion. And he would say, that doesn't make sense. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? It makes complete sense because I feel. And he was to push back on me and say, no, it doesn't make sense. And a few years later in college, I began to take classes like logic and begin to learn how to reason, because logical reasoning was not something that was targeted towards young women. Emotional reasoning was targeted towards young women. So if you are in a relationship where you as a man are thinking logically, your wife is involved in emotional reasoning, then what you need to do is remember this. It takes skills, learning skills, how to communicate with each other. Like if you haven't grown up in a situation where your parents had healthy communication skills, then by default, nobody knows how to talk to one another. But it's not because she's unable to reason. She can reason. And the other very important thing about the difference between men and women, we call it waffles and spaghetti. So men, you all think in compartments. Everything has a box. So work is in a box. The house is in a box. Your relationship with your wife is in a box. The kids are in another box. Like, and then even with you men, you have another box called the nothing box, where you ain't doing nothing. Like you ain't thinking about nothing, you ain't doing nothing, you don't want to do nothing. Those are all compartments in a male mind. The female mind is spaghetti. It's a bunch of jumbled up wires all mixed together, everything touching one another. Is everything is related to everything. And it's the key to why we're so industrious, why we're so like just amazing creatures, because our minds are not compartmentalized the way that a male mind is, and everything is connected. But it does drive you men crazy, because something that happened 18 years ago will come up because of something that you said or the way that you looked, and she'd be like, all of a sudden her heart broke and you like confused. You like, I have no idea what just happened. And she's like, that reminded me of what happened 18 years ago when you said this. And you're like, what in the world is this lady talking about? Her spaghetti, man. Everything touches. Everything touches. You have some people, when they make their plate, nothing on their plate touch. And you have other people, everything in their plate gets smushed together. The female mind, everything is touching. Everything is related in our mind. You're not gonna make us separate stuff. But I do think that when women understand that about ourselves, when we understand that we have spaghetti wiring and men are compartmentalized, it helps you women speak to your man based only on one issue. If you be doing him like this, he's he's going to become frustrated. He's probably going to shut down, or he's going to growl at you and hurt your feelings because he can't do all that like how your mind works. He can deal with one issue. And then once he deals with that issue, he's ready to move on. What y'all think, brothers? Am I hitting it right? Do you recommend doing premarital counseling? Most no one does. So I'm gonna use myself as an example. Because when I was ready to get married. I couldn't see no wrong. I just wanted to be married. I was like Suge Avery on The Color Purple, trying to hurry up, run to the street, and tell my daddy I was married now. Like I just wanted to be married. So whatever the premarital counseling said we were supposed to do, whatever the conversation was we were supposed to be having, like I was gonna shake my head, nod my head, agree to do everything right, because I just wanted to get it out of the way so that we could go ahead and get married. So if you have somebody who just like hot the pants, ready to get married, pre-marriage counseling is just a huge waste of time. You're probably just going to get a discount on your marriage certificate when you apply for it down at the courthouse. It's a complete waste of time. But if you have a couple who have some wisdom, because I wasn't the one. If you have a couple who has some wisdom, and they look and they notice that it's some conversations that y'all should have now, and be willing that if y'all not on the same sheet of music about some fundamentals, y'all might not need to get married. See, I think that's where most people fall apart with marriage counseling. It's like you don't want to imagine that you and this person are not going to make it. I feel like you need to be willing to be honest that, I don't think I could live with the way that this person wants to raise kids, or I don't think I could live with the way that this person want to handle money, or I don't think I want to be with this person with the kind of habits they have and they think it's perfectly fine. I think that pre-marriage counseling, if you are willing to have an honest reevaluation of your relationship and not be so gung-ho about your wedding day, not be so gung-ho about the flowers and the pictures and the centerpieces, then yes, it can save you from the heartbreak that men and women go through when they are sitting down at the divorce attorney, never imagining that they were going to have this day where they hate each other's guts because they didn't think certain things through, or they had too many butterflies in their stomach to deal with the facts. So that'll be my answer to that question. So it doesn't look like we have a couple ready for today, y'all, that we could actually do a live mediation with. But I tell you this, we did get a couple of emails. One that responded, it was way too sensitive for this format. I will say that we will do the mediations here if they are appropriate for a live. So a couple of things. Mediation is not legal advice. It's just helping two people have a conversation. They're not seeing eye to eye. And I listen to both sides, and then I hear what they have in common, and I present their commonalities to them, and I present some solutions to them. So that's what mediation is. Not every mediation that comes through our office will be appropriate for the live. And the one that kind of was responsive to us today, it was not appropriate for this venue. So number one, it's not legal advice. And number two, it's not a substitute for, continuing the work. Continue the work beyond the conversation. Usually after you feel heard and understood, you feel better towards this person. Like it helps you connect with this person. And so if you and your spouse come on and we're able to help y'all kind of rebuild some of that connection, my encouragement to you beyond this live is to continue the work with someone who can help you learn the skills, how to talk to each other, how to restore trust, how to restore respect. Women want respect just like men want respect. And that's work that you have to continue to invest in your relationship moving forward. And so, without having a live mediation available this Monday, I'm looking forward to being able to get some folks on next Monday. And if we don't have anything else, any other questions that I might be missing, then I'm going to thank you all for your support tonight. And I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll see you next time.